Powered by the Montana Television Network. Montana This Morning continues on Montana's News Leader.
It's now day 20 of the partial government shutdown, and President Trump is headed to the U.S.-Mexico border. I'm Mark Liverman in New York, and I'll tell you why his border wall negotiations with Democrats yesterday were very short-lived.
I'm Patrice Parks. Coming up on the news, there have been 13 children who've died so far this season from the flu. Coming up, we'll have some reminders for you on how to protect yourself and your family.
Good Thursday morning, Southwest Montana, 6:30. Chet Lehman, Missy O'Malley with you. We'll have Patrice's story in a moment, our top national story this half hour. President Trump visits the U.S.-Mexico border today as he continues to push for border wall funding.
And yesterday, another round of talks broke down, leaving no end in sight for the partial government shutdown. That's now 20 days old. CBS's Mark Liverman has more from New York City.
20 days into the partial government shutdown, President Trump is getting out of Washington. He's headed to Texas, where he'll visit the U.S.-Mexico border. The trip comes a day after another meeting with congressional leaders made no progress in ending the standoff.
Our meeting did not last long.
The negotiations ended abruptly when both sides refused to budge over the president's demands for $5.7 billion for border wall funding. He tweeted that the meeting was a total waste of time.
There will be no deal without a wall. There will be no deal without the priorities the president has put on the table.
We saw a temper tantrum because he couldn't get his way and he just walked out of the meeting.
You're doing the right thing.
Earlier in the Oval Office, the president said he's heard plenty of support from some of the 800,000 federal workers not getting paid.
I hope we're going to have the situation worked out, but they want security in our country, and so do I.
They'll all miss their first paycheck this week. It's frustrating for Ashley Totten, whose husband is in the Coast Guard.
For me, it's just a lot of talk and no action.
It's the only branch of the military not being paid during the shutdown. The Coast Guard posted, but then removed a flyer with suggestions on how to make money in the meantime. It included things like babysitting, walking pets, and having a garage sale.
How do you tell an infant and a 2-year-old, like, hey, let's sell your toys because mommy and daddy need money?
Workers will receive back pay after the shutdown ends. Mark Liverman, CBS News.
House Democrats passed a bill to reopen the Treasury Department last night and plan to pass another legislation to reopen various agencies. But the Senate's top Republican, Mitch McConnell, says he won't bring any vote to the floor that doesn't have the president's support.
We'll have more on that coming up at 7 o'clock on CBS this morning. Right now, meteorologist Matt Elwell steps in to join us. An unusually pleasant morning out there for
January,
for the 10th of January.
Yeah.
It makes me nervous when it's like this.
Me too. And we're going to talk a little bit about where we stand for snowpack in western Montana coming up here out on the Billy and Auto Weather patio in about 10 minutes. So
perfect.
Stay tuned.
Yeah.
Temperatures into the 20s for most of us this morning. We've got a few clouds that are out there, and that's going to keep the temperatures up a few degrees. I think our daytime high should be near the 40-degree mark, both east and west of the divide. Light wind. We do have a bit of a cool down as we head into your Friday, but not dramatic. We're going to break down your complete forecast coming up in a few minutes.
Don't get me wrong, I'm still thinking about taking my mountain bike out today. I'm nervous, but I'm not that nervous.
I saw the wheels going. I was like, what is Chet thinking about right now?
Yeah, I'm not that nervous.
Absolutely. Here's our top story for you here now at 6:33. According to the Centers for Disease Control, a number of western states are seeing elevated cases of influenza right now. Montana is still in the moderate range of flu activity.
Gallatin County among the 4 counties with the highest number of influenza cases in our state. MTN's Patrice Parks takes a closer look.
We're about 2 weeks behind in our reporting what we get for our city county in terms of influenza cases. So 2 weeks ago we had 29. Our latest count from last week is about 18 cases. But it is on the rise.
Dr. Mark Winton is an infectious disease specialist with Bozeman Health Deaconess Hospital. He says while it's too early to tell how this flu season will conclude, there's some good news compared to last year.
We're already noticing a difference between this season and last season. Last season was especially bad. We had 80,000 deaths in the U.S., and the year before that it's more like 15,000, so it's really gone up. The type of influenza that's coming around now is we have one that's called H1. Last year it was H3 at this time. You have to break it out because there are 4 different components to the vaccine. There are 2 A's and 2 B's. For the one that's circulating now, the H1, our match is about 90%. So for this strain, it's about 90% effective.
Experts tell us the flu can last all the way through May, so it's still not too late to get your shot.
It takes a week or two for that immunity to build. But you know, this flu season, we're kind of at the beginning of the flu season, so it's not too late to get it right now.
We know you've heard it before, but Kelly has some basic reminders about prevention.
You know, get your shot, wash your hands, and when you're sick, go to the doctor and stay home.
And Dr. Winton tells us you can't catch the flu from the flu shot.
The shot does not contain any live virus. There's nothing live in it. The shot cannot give you the flu.
Dr. Winton tells us there are some differences in vaccine options. He tells us sniffy flu is actually better than the shot in terms of efficacy in younger adults. Flu mist is live and can handle mutations that occur throughout the season. He says it's best to discuss these options with your doctor. In Bozeman, Patrice Parks for MTN News.
Now 6:35, 20 days and the federal government remains shut down while President Trump and congressional Democrats battle over the funding for the southern border wall. And the president of the state Senate, Scott Sales, here in Montana, says he'd like Montana to give the president some help on that border wall, some assistance. Sales plans to ask the legislator to approve a resolution that will express support for the building of the border wall, but he also wants to put some of Montana's taxpayer money where its mouth is. Republican from Bozeman says he will also sponsor a bill to use $8 million of state money as Montana's share of the building of the $5 billion wall. He says border security is vital importance to the nation and that his bills are one way to press the issue.
I've been in the legislature a long time. I haven't typically supported a lot of additional government spending, but I think this is of such a critical issue at a critical time. I think it behooves us to take a look at maybe prompting Congress to do what they should do. I've supported this concept. I think a lot of Americans voted for President Trump and Montanans on this one concept alone.
Now on the other side, Democratic House Leader Casey Schreiner of Great Falls told MTN News yesterday the bills are just political grandstanding and that Democrats are in Helena to work on problems facing the state.
I would love to send a message to the people of Montana as they see their property taxes increase and taxes along the way that we are going to focus on finding ways to reduce those costs than burdens on them than sending money out of state to corporations to build a wall that, again, is not a Montana solution.
Now, Republicans control majorities in the Montana House and Senate, but the spending bill on the border wall funding must also get the signature of Governor Steve Bullock.
6:37 now, we're going to shift gears just a little bit. Consumer advocates are warning about a new variation of an old scam that's becoming a major problem nationwide and here in Montana.
And in this week's Fraud Watch, MTN's Jonathan Ambarian looks at what you need to know about the Social Security scam.
It all begins with a threatening phone call.
Enforcement agencies to suspend your Social Security number on an immediate basis, as we have received suspicious trails of information in your name.
A pre-recorded message says your Social Security number has been linked to criminal activity, and you have to call back immediately.
Now, if I don't hear a call from you, we will have to issue an arrest warrant under your name and get you arrested. So get back to me as soon as possible.
In some instances, you see where they're asking you to verify your Social Security number, so you're at risk for identity theft, but then they will also typically want you to make some sort of payment with a prepaid debit card as well.
The Federal Trade Commission reports the Social Security scam is growing fast. They received more than 35,000 reports in 2018. The Montana Office of Consumer Protection is seeing a jump as well.
For the state of Montana, we received 56 reports of this scam just for the month of December.
The Social Security scam is a variation on the more well-known IRS scam.
We want Montana citizens to be aware that scams evolve over time, so just to be aware of common traits.
A real government agency wouldn't call to tell you you've been linked to an investigation. And as always, be suspicious if someone demands an immediate payment.
The main red flag is to be aware of fast payments and that sense of urgency. A legitimate agency is not going to ask you to make a payment through a prepaid debit card or a wire transfer or through a gift card.
In Helena, Jonathan Ambarian, MTN News.
Now, if you do receive one of these calls, the Office of Consumer Protection recommends that you report to them with your local law enforcement and the Federal Trade Commission. You can also find more information, of course, on our websites.
Good advice there right now.
Always.
Certainly.
Yes.
6:39, we're going to take a quick break here on Montana This Morning. When we come back, this is fascinating. Battle brewing between a town in Wales and one in New Zealand over a simple street. How steep really is this street? We'll explain.
Oh, yeah. But first, here's Bianca Golodriga with a look at what's coming up at 7 a.m. here on CBS This Morning.
Good morning. Ahead on CBS This Morning, we're along the U.S.-Mexico border before President Trump's visit this afternoon. Plus, some foods you eat may be high risk because the shutdown has forced the FDA to reduce inspections at food processing facilities. And in our More Perfect Union series, the rare and historic surgery that turned two strangers into lifelong friends. We'll see you at 7.